and we're back in record time.
Welcome to Voices of Harpswell, hosted by Harpswell's Bicentennial Project of the American Eagle Grange, with funding by the Maine Bicentennial Commission. In this series of interviews with people from all geographic sections of Harpswell, from all ages and interests, we hope to compile a picture of Harpswell today in this tumultuous year of 2020, the 200th anniversary of Maine's statehood. Today we have with us a person who has done a lot in Harpswell and who was born here in Harpswell. Will you tell us your name and when you were born?
Sharon Kirker. I was born in 1946.
All right. And whereabouts in Harpswell were you born?
Actually, I was born in Bath Memorial Hospital. And at 10 days old, I moved with my parents. We were living with my grandparents on Allen Point Road. And then my father was building a house in the woods.
Oh, that was going to be for you.
Yes.
Nice. Well, and what did your father do in Harpswell?
He was a sardine fisher, lobsterman, house builder, boat builder, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah, nice. Well, so then where did you go to school as a child when you were young?
I started at the old North Harpswell School, which is a restaurant now, because the baby boomers overfilled the schools, so they put the kindergarten and first grade at the North Harpswell School.
Interesting.
And it was a wonderful experience because the teacher was an elderly lady. She was the minister's wife the man had been the minister at our church. And it was like having grandparents because he came in, there was no plumbing. We had
you had outhouses?
There was a shed with the outhouses. And he brought water every day and tended the wood fire. So it was a very homey experience, with grandparents, really.
That's amazing. Did you have a bus, or did parents have to drive kids, or some kids walked?
I imagine it was the Willette bus service at that point in Brunswick, because all through my elementary years, that's what I imagine that was what got us to North Harpswell School too.
Yeah.
Then for second grade, we went down to the West Harpswell School.
Nice. And you brought your own lunch, and you had
time
on recess. Did you actually, when you were a little kid up at the North Harpswell, was there a place to play outside?
Oh, yes.
Kind of where the parking lot is now? Or?
Well, the parking lot and all around it. And one day I, being used to roaming free in the woods, I took a couple girls and went up back to what was Huntington's place and scared them very much because there was a missing children. But I didn't know we weren't supposed to wander off.
Gee.
But it was a good way to begin the school years.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then when you were at the West Harpswell School, there were a fair number of kids in your class because of the baby boom then, huh?
Yes. I don't remember how many, but it was a full class.
So there was one second grade, and all of you kids?
Actually, the rooms were Goldie Moss taught second and third, and Mrs. Peabody taught fourth and fifth. And then the older room, which we started out with Warren Naughton, was seventh. She must have taught 4, 5, and 6, and then 7 and 8 were in the older room.
Oh yeah. So it was still grouped together. So you had kids a little younger or a little older. Yeah.
Yes.
And then what did you do for high school?
We went to Brunswick High School.
Oh, okay. Because I remember when we interviewed your mom that she had gone to Lisbon Falls.
That was because my grandfather, there was no bus service, and he would not have his daughter riding with those boys that drove other kids to school.
Oh, interesting. Because I wondered why she went all the way to Lisbon Falls, because that must have been so hard for her to have to board with a family and be away from her own family.
Well, she knew the lady because they had a summer cottage quite near there on Allen Point Road. And the lady offered, she wanted somebody to help her out with the housework, and because she was a postmistress up in Lisbon Falls. So my mother boarded with her and kind of worked her board.
I mean, that does seem hard by today's standards to think about a 14-year-old kid doing that and having to be away from home, but she seemed to enjoy it, huh?
My mother was a very do what needed to be done person her whole life. She just, whatever needed to be done, she did it and didn't complain.
Edith Marden. I was born in Harpswell, Maine in 1920.
1920. And where did you spend your childhood?
Well, for a few years we lived in Poland because that was my father's home. Then we moved back here to take care of my grandmother when my grandfather died. When my brother, who is 17 months younger than me, was born, my father took me home to Poland with him.
Yeah.
And I remember his putting me in the seat in this old open car. I think it was a Chevy.
Yeah.
And I remember going out the driveway. I went to school in Poland until I was 4th grade. And then down here in Harpswell. And then high school, I went to Lisbon Falls High. When I went to high school, I worked for my board. I used to have to do the dishes, help get the meals, and things like that.
Well, what a contrast from your high school to go to Brunswick High and be home every night.
Yes, and during, I think it was my sophomore year, was when they built the new wing on the high school, because the high school was so overcrowded. They did us in shifts. My brothers went to school, they were older. They went to school in the morning, and I went to school in the afternoon. So in the winter, we got home after dark.
Oh,
It was
tough. Well, and then they did provide buses at that
There were
point,
buses,
because by
yes.
high school you're at the 60s.
Well, in elementary school there was a bus service. It was not the district, the town didn't own the buses. They rented them from Willett Bus Service in Brunswick.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, what do you remember about Brunswick High?
It was a horrible experience for an extremely shy child who went to a local school. And a lot of the kids that had been in Brunswick Junior High were used to book reports and can't think what I want to say.
Like
doing
essays?
essays and papers and so on. And we hadn't been taught much of that. So it was, and I wasn't used to the crowds of people and the picking on people the same. It was hard. And some of the teachers didn't want us there.
What do you mean?
I had my ancient history teacher, my freshman year, came into the class the first day and said, I want you to know I don't think that children from Topsom, Bodenham, and Harpswell belong here.
What did that teacher base that on? Just prejudice?
Prejudice, because he thought it should be just Brunswick High School.
Gee, nothing like making a kid feel unwelcome. That's terrible.
But the high school was very, very difficult for me to really feel comfortable.
So you didn't want to do after school stuff, you just wanted to get out then? Huh?
Yeah, I did sing in the chorus all 4 years, I think. And my senior year, it couldn't go into my schedule, so they had an afternoon chorus but we had to provide our own rides. There wasn't a late bus like there was later on.
That's really hard. Well, did they have gym for girls then? Do you remember if they had it there?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
We had physical education. I hated physical education. I was used to running wild through the woods barefoot, physical activity, and I had to learn team sports and so on, and that wasn't me.
Right. Really tough. Well, were there any subjects at all that you kind of enjoyed? Because I think about what a fabulous cook you are now. Did you have home ec, or had they stopped home ec then?
I was in the college course, so I couldn't take home
Oh, they
ec.
wouldn't let you take it then?
No, I had to take all academic courses, and yeah, there were subjects I really loved, like algebra and trigonometry.
So you really
especially.
loved math, huh?
I did. We had in the 8th grade, Mr. Kitchen came, and there was a little back room at the school, and he taught us algebra. And so when we went into Brunswick High School, we started in the middle of the year with algebra.
What was the part of it? Just because it was analytical, or just you were good at it?
I was good at it, but I don't know, it just intrigued me. I love solving problems.
There you go. That's probably
That's
why.
any problem. I love to solve it.
Yeah.
I don't like unsolved problems.
Good. Well, so then what did you do when you were home then on the weekends? You stayed in Harpswell pretty much. And what did you? Now you mentioned your brothers. How many in your family? How many other kids?
I have 2 older brothers and a younger sister.
Oh, so 4 kids.
Right.
So did you play together?
We did. When we were younger, we rarely ever went off the land. My parents had 24 acres, and the woods around it were undeveloped, and we just, like I said, ran wild like little Indians barefoot. And I had trouble with my eyes. When I was 7, I started wearing glasses because I had amblyopia, and that was very difficult for me, being shy, because I was the only kid in West Harpswell School with glasses. Mm-hmm. But before the glasses, I had to wear a patch over my good eye to make my other eye work. Oh. So I got a lot of teasing, but it was annoying, but it didn't destroy me. Yeah. You know. But I was always the odd kid, the one that had glasses.
So they'd make cracks like 4 eyes and stuff.
Oh yeah, I heard a little of that.
Yeah, that's too bad. Of course, every kid gets picked on for something. So
oh yeah,
that's hard.
Makes you stronger, right?
Makes you stronger, absolutely.
In the summer, what kinds of things did you do?
Well, we went swimming a lot, and of course we had to help get the hay in. We had to tread the load.
Oh yes.
And then when we got it into the barn, we helped pitch it up onto the mow.
Did you guys go swimming a lot in the summer? And
we did some. Our land went almost to the ocean, but the ocean wasn't developed, so we had a right of way down. And in the summer, we were expected to help raise the family's food because we gardened, we had a cow, we had raised pigs, raised our own eggs, And we were expected to do our share of weeding in the garden. And quite often it was a big all day in the garden thing. And then we went swimming to wash off the dirt before we went into the house to wash it off.
It was when I was about 3 years old. I went way down in the field with my father in the garden. And I got tired and wanted to go home. And he said, well, it's all right. You can go up by yourself. So I did. I started up to the house. And I let out a scream that brought my grandfather and my mother running. And they asked what was the matter. And I said, I saw a tune.
A tune?
Well, they found out it was a baby skunk had come up and walked on the wall. And that made me so scared I screamed. Well, I first had walked up to an apple tree that had apples about that big. They were called king apples. And I had one gathered up in my dress. They asked me why I didn't throw one of those apples at him. I said I was too scared. I spent 2 summers with my grandparents. Well, one of those years
In Harpswell.
I was in the garden and a carrot had grown up high and I was barefooted. I caught my toe on that carrot and took a slice out and I got blood poisoning.
Oh.
So my grandfather took me up to the doctor and I remember his getting his forceps out and saying, too bad, too bad. And he came over and pulled my toenail after he froze it.
Oh.
And the rest of the summer, I walked on the side of my foot. And when I went back to school that fall, I couldn't straighten my foot up. I walked on the side of my foot for quite a while. They haven't tasted good since. That was foolish, though, because it was not the taste.
So, and my mother would take us other times too down to the shore. And we had a Newfoundland dog that made it so much fun because he would hold a stick in his mouth with a child holding on to each side and one holding on to his tail, and he'd tow us through the water. He was a really good swimmer.
Oh, that's great, like a dog float.
Yeah.
We had a big dog, and we played with him, threw the ball for him, and taught him tricks. And we used to go down through the fields with him.
And we had another, an experience in our childhood that no other child in Harpswell had. When they built the fuel depot, the Navy came to my parents and said, we're putting a quarry in your front yard. And they blasted the hillside out. We had to reroute the driveway. And it's probably, the corner of the quarry is probably 150 feet from the front door. They just,
They took it by like eminent domain or something?
Right.
Oh, that's terrible.
They paid pennies for it, but that was, I don't know how long it took, but I do remember it being in the summer and in the winter. And of course they were blasting, and we had to go indoors while they blasted until a rock hit the roof, and then they made us go way over in the back field, and there's still a rock over there that landed during the blasting. But once during the blasting, a rock came down on the power lines, and it tangled them in such a way that 2 live wires went against each other, and it blew out the power in Harpswell, Brunswick, I guess up into Topsom. It was. Then they started using heavier blankets over the blasting so that things didn't fly so bad. Wow. But that quarry being blasted, when they weren't there working, we were all over that quarry. And eventually, when they got all done, there was water, so it froze in the winter and we skated there. But it was rusty water, and in the summer, there was quite a brook that flowed because they hit a vein of water. And we built miniature lobster traps, and we trapped the little water skippers, and our clothes turned orange from the rusty water. My mother finally said, you know, you have one bathing suit you can wear in the water.
Oh, right, because you just wrecked them.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And when it was, of course now there are 40-foot trees growing there, so it's all grown in, but when it was all bare, the killdeers nested there. Oh. And it was so much fun to go down and watch the little cotton balls on legs that bobbed around when they hatched.
Well, that must be all the stone that they just took out last year when they carted all that stone away. That was the ballast sort of in those underwater
Well, I don't know exactly where they used it. I think in the causeway it was the base rock. They were hauling out rocks the size of refrigerators, a lot of them.
Wow.
And I know that the surface down there is something like blue rock or granite or something on the edges, but this was just plain old shale rock. And so there were dynamite boxes left.
Oh, for
They were-
kids, that must have
Oh,
been.
yeah.
You can
And,
make them
and blasting wire everywhere, the colored wire, so craft projects and
rings.
you
and-
know.
Yeah. What fun.
But in the winter, they had to come early in the morning and fire up the diesel compressor that ran all their electrical or whatever, and it was very near the house, so we'd wake up with that. It was just an experience, you know. We were usually awake by then, but I mean, that was the early morning sound, was the men getting the compressor going, or generator maybe.
So
not
that
compressor.
took basically a year for all that.
I don't know, but I
Through the
remember it
summer,
being
through the winter.
during warm weather and in the winter.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so that really, I mean, then you think about building that line all the way up to Brunswick. So that was a huge
That was in the
project.
backyard. That went through the backyard.
So you had it both ways, both for the quarry and for the...
Yep, and they did blasting the other way because there was so much ledge. So, but that it was an interesting part of childhood.
Yeah, I would say. Gee whiz. Well, would you, in the garden, of course, actually having that blasting would sort of loosen everything, right? I mean, you get pictures falling off the wall and things when you get a lot of that. So
I don't
I bet
remember.
your mother hated it, even if you kids thought it was sort of fun.
I think there was extra dust.
Yes.
But my father had cut the trees and dug the cellar hole by hand and built the house. And it was in the woods, so it hadn't become lawn yet. It was still woods dirt, so dust was a normal thing around the house.
Still. Yeah, but so in the garden, what all did you grow? Like tomatoes and the whole shebang? Or did your mother have particular things she really liked?
We grew all the vegetables. I mean, carrots, beets, Swiss chard, turnips, potatoes. We planned on growing enough vegetables to store for the whole year, you know, until spring. And berries. There were a lot of high bush blueberries on the land. I remember going out, we all picked berries, and it went all the way through to 123, the land did. So we would go out there with canners and buckets and pick berries. The plan was to put 50 quarts of blueberries, 50 quarts of raspberries in the freezer every winter so that we didn't buy fruit. We didn't grocery shop very often. You know, my mother baked bread, and we went to, when I was in high school, I think they shopped about every week in Brunswick, did one grocery shopping trip. But before that, for a while they had grocery service from Randall's store. Somebody, I say grocery service, Billy Randall came and took an order and dropped things off. But we had our own milk and butter, and my mother made cottage cheese, real cottage cheese. I can remember sitting down to a 4-quart bowl of cottage cheese sometimes for the protein for the meal. You know, then of course all the vegetables with it, because my mother believed in balanced meals. She always made sure we had everything.
That's great. What wonderful meals. That's probably why you're all healthy and hale, right? And have all of that. Well, do you remember other businesses that were in the neighborhood? Because Allen Point didn't have businesses then.
Not then. Earlier, my grandmother had a boarding house in the summer, and there were a lot of those over town.
Back early on, a lot of people rented out rooms in the summer. I
Yes.
remember Grammy did.
Yeah.
His family did. Down in West Harpswell, there were quite a few places that. What can you tell me about some of those?
Well, they they usually let them for the summer. The people came with a steamer trunk and stayed for the whole summer
Came on the steamer.
on the steamer, yeah. And one summer, our grandmother was not feeling well and said she guessed she couldn't do it. Well, my mother was in her early 20s, and she said, well, if I get somebody to help me, can I do it? And they said yes, so she did, and she earned enough money to buy her piano, which she had been taking lessons on.
Ah,
And when they came to deliver it, it was mud season, and they got stuck, and they had a terrible time. It was after dark,
because they brought it down over at 123 in the mud.
yeah. So my grandparents said they could stay overnight, they'd take care of them. And one of the men ripped the whole seat of his pants out, so he had a terrible time all evening, but
Ah,
they made it back to Portland the next day.
ah. So they used to rent out rooms, extra rooms, for the summer,
Right?
and a lot of those folks ended up buying cottages
Yeah,
and become Harpswell summer people.
right. And they lived right with the people. I remember my mother saying one time my uncle Cleve took her to Portland to pick up something, and well, I guess he took the whole family, and when they got back, it was supper time, and some of the boarders had gone ahead and cooked their
Went
meal.
into the kitchen and just did their own.
Yeah,
So how did they go to Portland with Cleve? They go on his boat?
in his sloop.
In his sloop, yeah. Now that was Alice's husband.
Yeah. And all the boarders that came used to send gifts better than what our parents
Sure.
could
Oh, yeah.
buy for us. And they used to send Christmas gifts to us.
Oh, yeah.
You got a whole box for Milton Bradley, didn't you, once?
Yeah, she thought that they had sent something that wasn't supposed to
Right.
be opened.
Yeah.
And I think some of those games are still around.
But there was Curtis' store, which then became Bailey's store and is now the museum. And there was Ed Randall's store down at the Point, which, when my parents were down there was a bowling alley and a
Well, and
theater.
your
and-
mom talked about a bowling alley at the Point.
Yes, there used to be a bowling alley there, and people bowled there a lot
Yep.
on Potts Point. And always people went to meet the steamer. Then they go pick up their mail. It was a big event when the steamer came in.
Where were the dances held?
They were at the Grange.
Oh, okay.
That was when she was younger, as a teenager. And I don't think she went very often because my grandfather was rather strict.
Oh, going to the Grange dance.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And minstrel shows, and yeah, the Grange was the place.
Yeah. We used to have square dances.
Oh, yes.
They were a lot of fun, both at the Grange and down at the Point.
Yeah. So before television, people did a lot of things, got together and did.
That's right.
Yeah.
They got together and had fun instead of arguing over who should wear masks and who shouldn't.
She was the only girl.
Oh.
So she, which was something I resented as a kid. My sister and I were the only granddaughters. all of my mother's brothers had boys. And I hated being a girl when I was little. It wasn't so much being a girl, it was not having the rights the boys had. There was a time when I was quite young. My mother had made me out of a woman's old coat. She had made me a beautiful snowsuit with fur around the collar, and I called it my Mekimo suit. And I'm not even sure I had started school. We were riding in the car one day, and the boys had to sit on the outside. This is before seat belts. The boys had to sit on the outside to protect me from falling out. Well, I was in one of my snits about not having the same rights as the boys, and I jumped over and grabbed the door handle and flew out of the car and bounced down the road. And that snowsuit protected me. I only had minor scratches. But by the time my father had the car stopped, I was running behind hollering, "Don't go home without me." But
Wow.
quite often my temper got me in trouble like that.
But your mom she must have been quite a seamstress, because snowsuits are not easy, right? So she had learned at home, or she had learned from...
I think back then everybody, all women knew how to alter things, and we had a lot of clothes sent to us that didn't quite fit, and I learned to adjust them when I was quite young. And then in 4-H, I learned to sew properly.
So there was an active 4-H here in Harpswell.
Yes, my mother was the assistant leader for a while, and then she took over when the leader left.
I remember when we planted the cedar tree. Well, you want to read all about it then.
Yeah.
And then she took over for the Girl Scout leader and was our Girl Scout leader. And I was real active in 4-H, both in Harpswell and in Cumberland County. So I
Did you
learned.
do animals, or mostly domestic arts, or what all badges do you remember?
The only animals I raised were a fat lamb. It was a program where you got a lamb in the spring and you raised it up to market and took it to Cumberland Fair and showed it. And then the meat dealers would come and buy it from you.
That must have been a little mixed feeling after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you were kind of sick of them though by the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I took home improvement, cooking, sewing, entomology, and forestry, and a lot of different projects.
A lot of things that you had interest with anyway from growing up, how you
Right.
grew up.
And I got to go, if you did well in things, you earned certain trips. Like I went to the University of Maine in Orono 2 or 3 years as a junior leader, and I won a trip to forestry camp at Bryant Pond, which is now not the 4-H. I don't know who. I think it's the Maine Teachers Association has it.
Oh,
And so
is that where you learned to cook? Because you're an amazing cook. Where'd you learn to cook?
I'm not sure I'm that amazing, but I just grew up cooking. My mother involved us in everything. My father told her, teach the boys to cook. Don't worry that they're boys. Teach them to cook, sew, whatever. And I learned to repair cars and shoot a gun and whatever, just because the boys did.
That's great. Great way to have it.
My grandfather in Sydney had a young horse. His horse had a colt, and he gave it to my father. And it was a stallion. It was never gelded. So the boys rode it. So I did. I'd saddle it up and take it. And of course, stallions don't behave very well sometimes. One day he ran away and went to the neighbors and scraped me off under an apple tree. Ooh. Hit the limb, and I was so mad. I didn't dare go home without the horse, and I was scared to death of the horrible old man that lived next door. So I just went after the horse And they stood there and laughed. The man and his son stood there and laughed and didn't help me. But I finally caught the horse and I slapped his face. I went home and my father said, "You never slap a horse, he'll remember it."
How was the horse with you after that?
The next day I got on him, saddled him up, got on him, and he started to misbehave. And I said, "Hey." He walked like a kitten.
Wow. So it worked?
He took it to heart.
Wow. That's really great.
But I was a wee bit of a tomboy daredevil.
You can see why. Well, so then what happened when you graduated from high school?
I went to work at J-Brush, putting the hair in the ferrule, making artist brushes.
Wow.
Yep.
That's really
Boring.
detailed work.
It
yeah,
was.
Think of all the artists that were grateful to you for that, for those beautiful brushes.
Yeah, I worked there for a year and then I got married
And where'd you meet your husband?
at J-Brush.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, he worked in a different department.
Yeah. And then did you live in Harpswell?
Yes. I lived in a converted garage for a while, and then I inherited a farm. I took care of an elderly lady and inherited her farm.
Oh, that's okay.
It
So
was-
then you lived there.
Yes, and then after my husband died, I moved in with my mother. So
Well,
she wouldn't be alone, because my
yeah.
father had died the year before. So
That was wonderful to do. And that's been what you've done right up until 2020. Yeah.
Right.
So this is the first now to be, yeah, that's difficult. That's difficult. But it sounds like you were always working now. You were always doing other things. You were growing food, you were canning. Did you can or freeze? Or both?
Both.
Yeah. What do you prefer?
Canning has always fascinated me, I guess you would say. I did it in 4-H. 2 years I was the state canning champion,
Wow.
and I didn't know it at the time, but if I had bothered to fill out the paperwork, I probably would have gotten the Kirker canning scholarship to college.
Wow.
But I was lazy about filling out my paperwork, and the county agent was very angry with me for not filling it out.
Oh.
But no, I did a lot of canning through my teenage years.
Fruit mostly or everything?
Everything.
Oh.
When you did the canning project, you had to exhibit at fair, and you had to do 3 fruits, 3 vegetables, and 3 greens, and a whole.
Wow, so they had it all specified, a real
Yeah.
protocol. Yeah. Well, I just think about September as a kid growing up. You walk in your kitchen and it's steam everywhere from all the canning. You know, it's a certain way of life. So, when September comes along every year, do you think about that, or do you still do some?
Oh, I've been canning Swiss chard and green beans and shell beans this year. Whatever's there, if you don't use it fresh, you have to put it away somehow. Can't waste it.
Yeah, but I do think people do freeze more. At least in my experience, you know, they tend to freeze more than can.
My experience with freezing, I do freeze. I've frozen some stuff this year. But if the freezer gets unplugged, I had a 500-pound chest freezer that my grandchildren knocked the plug out and I didn't know it. And after I was married, we raised our own meat.
Oh.
We had goat, chicken, ducks. We had turkeys in there, and beef. And I lost it all.
Oh, that would just be hard. You'd be hard.
And we have the power out so often here. I always worry about I've never bought a generator yet.
Yeah, yeah. Just go with the flow when that happens. Oh, that's good. But tell me more about your mom too, and how she did a huge amount in the community with all her scout work and with the church and with all sorts of things. And so, but you and she were close all your life, right?
Yeah, always got along with my mother.
That's really great.
The only time was a little bit different was when I moved in with her. It took us a year or two to get used to each other.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so then when you were raising your own family, how many kids did you have?
I had 3 daughters.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's great. So that was really great for your mom, too, to have 3 granddaughters so close around.
Yep. And then she had a lot of other grandchildren, too. She had a huge family by the time she died. She had about 60 descendants.
Isn't that fabulous? Yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 great-granddaughters, too.
Do you really?
Yes.
Wow.
3 grandchildren and 2 great-granddaughters.
That's lovely. That's so great. Well, and do you do some of the same things with them that your grandmother and mother did with you?
I really haven't had the opportunity to do much with them just because of where they were living and so on. But my only granddaughter is in the Air Force. And
nice.
right now she's just gotten home from Qatar. But she's in Virginia, so I don't see her.
Boy, she must have tales to tell from that experience.
Yeah, they got stuck there for a while because of the virus.
Wow. Well, speaking of the virus, I mean, how do you see Harpswell and you yourself and your own family having been affected by COVID-19?
I find it just a little annoying for me because I don't go much. I'm not going to church because I can't bring myself to be around the crowds. I miss Grange and Pomona, which I went to regularly. But other than that, it's my daughters do my shopping for me mostly. So I'm not terribly inconvenienced by it. I do kind of miss jumping in the car with my grandson or my daughters and going somewhere because I'm sure that if I get exposed to it, I'll get it and die.
Well,
you know?
that's just wise to be careful, yeah.
But it has been difficult for my daughters because of the kind of work they do. One of my daughters owns Seaside Housekeeping, and so they have to go in and clean houses that out-of-staters have been renting for a week or something, and it's...
Right, so you don't really know where they've been, where the renters have been, or what they've been exposed
They're
to.
very cautious, but it's still...
Still nerve-wracking. Yeah.
But I think that it's been harder on people with ordinary jobs, that 9-to-5 jobs that have to go into work and hope that their co-workers are behaving.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, and you mentioned the Grange. You've been a member of the Grange since you were young, right?
No.
Since you were a kid.
No.
No? When did you join?
Shy little kid that I was, I always wanted to join the Grange, but nobody would join with me. And after my husband died, I finally said, I'm going to join the Grange all by myself. So I think it's only been about 10 years.
Wow. Because that's where I met you. That's where I first had some of your fabulous cooking. So that's why I know you're a good cook no matter what you say. But so have you seen the Grange change in 10 years?
I think interest level fluctuates and attendance, but I had exposure to the Grange some before. Growing up, the Girl Scouts did programs there, the 4-H did programs there. Once in a while, I went to a dance there as a teenager, and there was a large membership in the Grange. And the Grange was an important part of the community. It was the social life of a whole generation of people, and it isn't that anymore. It's the people that go to the Grange now, I think, are more interested in the history of the Grange and keeping it going it was taken for granted back then that the Grange would always be there as a community social life. And now I think that it's the die-hard people that just don't want it to go away.
Well, the location is so great too. That may be in its favor too.
But some of my memories of the Grange, the 4-H did, in 4-H, if you did the sewing project, you went to a dress review, you made a garment, and you modeled it on stage with a runway and the whole thing. And that was always held in Falmouth. But we decided to do one at the Grange one year. And I think they actually put a runway out from the stage, and we modeled something
Oh, what
that
a
we
great
had made.
experience for you girls, or you people, some boys maybe too, but that's really a great idea. Give you confidence.
And the Girl Scouts did various things there. One of the programs was at Juliet Lowe's anniversary. We did a music program where we sang songs from different centuries. I was the narrator for the first night of it and developed bronchitis, so I coughed halfway through it. And the next night, somebody else narrated.
Oh, what a bad timing. That's too bad. Well, you know, your mom, when we interviewed your mom, when Dave interviewed your mom, she was talking about gathering sap and making maple syrup.
We gathered sap to make maple syrup. That was all a kid's job to gather that.
Is that something that stopped with her, or did you and your
No, we
kids
didn't.
do it too?
We had, the front acreage was spruce, but in the back there was a maple grove, and down near the ocean. And my brothers carried the sap in and we boiled it off.
Nice.
That was
That's a
an
lot of
annual
boiling.
thing. One year a moose came while they were there. So that winter we had moose drills all winter. That was part of our play.
Oh, that's great.
Somebody would haul a moose and would all climb trees or something.
Was that the only time you ever saw a moose? Or do they come alive then?
Yeah, they were fairly common, but
That's
being
really
that
cool.
close, you know, that made it interesting.
Yeah.
We have bears down here too occasionally.
Uh-huh. Because I see a lot of fox, and I know Laura was saying that she sees coyotes too and stuff, but I didn't realize there were bears. That's really interesting.
Yeah, the boys one winter saw a bear going along behind a stone wall, and they thought it was a bear, so my grandfather went and looked, and he said, sure enough, it was bear tracks. Wow. But back, 20 years ago, I was walking on the fuel line, and I saw bear tracks, and my mother and I went cranberrying, and were wondering why all the cranberries on my land had been eaten. And then we came up on a steaming pile of
Bear dung.
bear dung.
Wow.
So we left.
Yes, a wise move.
And not too many years ago, within the past 10 years, my mother and I were driving home from Brunswick one night, and up by Norton Swamp, a bear came out of the ditch and then saw us and went back into the ditch. So
Yeah.
they are around
They are
once in a
still
while.
around. That's interesting. But so you have cranberries and blueberries and raspberries. So you really had a ton of berries on your land.
Yeah, blackberries.
Wow, nice.
There are several swampy places on my land that had cranberries, but that quarry when that started growing in, cranberries took root there. So there used to be various bogs around town where we went and picked cranberries.
I never knew that. That's really interesting because that's such a delightful treat too.
We also went out weekends. My father quite often would take us out in the lobster boat, and we'd go to different islands. And in the seasons, we went on Flag Island. There was a huge cranberry bog. We'd come home with cannons full of cranberries
Nice.
and freeze them for the winter. And one of the other islands had gooseberries.
Oh, yeah.
And so we picked a lot of gooseberries and
What did you tend to do with gooseberries? Jams? And
jams, but we also just froze the berries and then defrosted them and put a little sugar on them and ate them.
just eat them as gooseberries. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really good. And your mom talked about, she did waitress, and she talked about, it was down Lookout Point?
At Lookout Point House.
And so that's where the bed and breakfast still is, or was there a different
No,
restaurant
it's
there?
the same building.
The same one?
Yeah, Susie Ransom ran Lookout Point House. It was, like a summer hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother waitressed there for, I think, all of her high school years. We used to have the beanhole suppers down behind the broom house. There was a sand pit, and that's where the first ones that we had for the public were. And there was a man who had a son about my age, and I was pouring coffee, and he started teasing me a little bit about his son, and I ended up pouring coffee right up his arm because I was so nervous. And I said, that's it, I will never waitress again. I think I was about 13 at the time.
Oh.
I never had interest in nursing either, but then I ended up working in nursing homes for years, starting in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I needed a job. And
Well, you're so compassionate. That fits. Yeah. But that's hard.
did.
That's very hard work. That's hard work emotionally as well as physically, too.
I started out as a CNA, and then I became a med tech.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easier giving people pills than doing all the other work. But I was older when that, I'd already raised my family at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so your kids aren't close by, like so many of us have kids farther away, too, but you still have some kids close by.
Right. The farthest one, I have a daughter that lives in Auburn, but the other two live on my land in Harpswell.
Oh, that's really great.
If you give them land, you get them to live near you.
That's a pretty good idea, right? Yeah, one of the things I was interested in with your mom's tape was she was talking about when Dave was asking her about COVID.
So how has the COVID-19 affected you?
It's really made life kind of miserable, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
And I dreamed last night that the solution to it would be for everyone to carry a piece of cedar.
Cedar.
The oil from the cedar would help it.
It was so fascinating that she would dream that. And then I thought, well, I wonder if she used traditional medicines herself at all. Or
She did some things like drinking water with vinegar in it. Was if she went somewhere and somebody had a cold, or if somebody came to the house with a cold, when they left, she drank a glass of vinegar water. Mm-hmm. And quite often she drank a daily glass. We both did. Sometimes with honey and sometimes just water and vinegar. She used to get rose hips when we were kids and make rose hip syrup and give us a dose.
so for colds or for stomach? Or
For the vitamin C, protective, she gave it to us.
Oh, that's right, because it does have, that's just like right out of the health food store now, the vinegar water
Right.
and that rose hip.
Because she
extract.
remembered that during World War II in the British Isles, they couldn't get oranges, so they harvested the rose hips for their vitamin C to prevent scurvy and for the other benefits.
This young fellow that he came over here from England, and they rented the house next to us, and he wanted to say hello to his wife, I guess. So he flew down low,
Whoa.
scared the children. We were out in a yard when, well, I think it was early dusk or something, and our next door neighbors were there with their dog. All of a sudden, the dog's hassle stood right up.
Yeah.
They began to growl, and a shell came right over us, went out in the water
Whoa.
and exploded. And the gulls just flocked there. Must have killed a lot of fish.
Oh, I'll bet.
So someone ran into the store and said, "You called Bailey Island." Said, "Your shells are coming right over us." And they said, "We're not firing. Get everybody in off the water."
It was
The shells were coming from way outside somewhere.
Ah, suppose it was the Germans?
Yeah, it was.
Oh.
They figured. Afterwards, they found out there somewhere. They found a German submarine with 2 men in it.
Oh.
And my father and mother one night said they stayed awake all night, seeing flashes out their bedroom window off in that direction.
Now, during the war, there was rationing.
Yes,
You could only get so much
yeah.
this, that, and the other thing.
Sugar especially was rationed, and flour, and we used to swap with our neighbors sometimes. Adrian was a baby, so he didn't need the sugar, and I let our next, well, she lived in the same house. I let her have some sugar so she could make her special Christmas bread. The grain bags were printed cotton cloth, and if we didn't get one to match another one that we'd gotten so that we could make something bigger, we could go to the grain store and see if they had one that had been turned in and buy it for, I think, 25 cents.
Ah.
And we could make a dress, or we could make children's clothes, all kinds
Green
of
bags.
other
Yeah. Cotton.
So, yeah, we ate dandelions and roasted dandelion roots and had them in the winter as a tonic and so on. And she was very big on eating natural things, picking mushrooms and eating what nature provided. Besides, like my garden has pigweeds growing in it that I'm protecting, not weeding out, because they're delicious. They're better
Well,
than
and she
spinach.
had a great story about going to Eagle Island.
Talk about Eagle Island.
Oh my, yes. Eagle Island was a place they liked to go. The Percy family were taking care of the island. They were the second caretakers, because my husband's father was out there for almost 20 years.
Ah.
And then he had to go ashore. So Percy's took over and lived out there. Well, they invited us out one weekend, so we spent the weekend out there with them. And Brian was a baby, and it was quite an adventure.
Yeah.
And I taught Ava something. She had sent Steve up to the store to buy something for supper, and he hadn't gotten it. And she said, "Now I don't have any vegetable for supper." And I said, "Ava, you got some growing right out here on your lawn." Well, I didn't see any. So I said, "Give me a kettle and I'll go out and pick some." So I went out and picked pigweed, and I guess the name kind of turned their stomach, but they thought they'd try it. Oh, they loved it. And ever after that, in the spring, she'd come to me. That's after they moved in off the island. She'd come and say, "Is it almost time to go picking pigweed?"
It's just in the spring you dig dandelions because my grandmother dug dandelions and my mother dug dandelions. You know,
So it's the tradition as well as everything
Right.
else. Yeah. Well, she was also talking about remembering when a meteor hit, but that was when she was really young, right? That wasn't anything you remember.
no, that was when she was a kid on Thorburns Pond skating.
We were there one night. All of a sudden, the whole pond lighted up just like daylight. Then there was a thud over in the woods.
Ah,
A meteor had come down and landed.
wow, right in the woods.
Yeah, and your father, Irving, later on went to see if he could find it, but he couldn't.
And I could never understand why they didn't go out right then and
Yeah.
look for the place where it landed, because there would have been a
Light.
melted place, you know.
Right, yeah.
But I guess it really scared the kids, and the adults didn't care.
Yeah, I'm sure that was part of it too, right there. Well, so what other community celebrations do you remember?
Community celebrations.
Like parades or?
Well, there was always the Memorial Day parade, and of course we marched with the Girl Scouts. And then I was the leader. Later on, I was the 4-H leader and the Girl Scout leader. And so for a lot of years, I marched in the parade as a kid or as an adult.
Nice.
But that's the most of what I remember. An occasional, I went to one square dance down at South Harpswell at Estes Beach. Never did much of that kind of thing as a teenager, but of course our family always gathered for a family reunion on Allen Point.
Oh, nice.
On the ocean. That when I was young, that was a big event. You know.
Were there special foods that they had every year? Was it
yes.
clam bakes? And
Well, it was, everybody brought things, and there was always the crock of punch. In my earlier years, there was a big crock and all this fruit floating in it and everything. I have to tell you a story, though, about back in my great-grandmother's day. Most of the people on Allen Point Road in that area were related, so they got together. And there was a big crock, and they had it out in front of the barn, which was attached to the house, so they had it sitting there, and apparently a cow backed up to the crock of punch on the 4th. Kind of ruined it.
no. Oh, what a story.
That's one of those things passed down.
Right. Oh, dear. But that must have been a fun thing, though, to have all the cousins and the ones who had moved a bit away to come back. And
That's my grandmother's family. The Smiths came from the Farmington area. And so the relatives up there would all come down in the early days. Once in a while in my lifetime, they have come down for the 4th. And we also have family reunions every year, except this year. That's something I really miss. The Nichols side of the family and the Smith have always had family reunions, and the Allen, but I couldn't go to any this year.
yeah, right.
In fact, I don't know if they even had them. But
a lot of families just cancel them, just postpone for one whole year. Yeah. How do you think this will end up? Do you think you'll have one next year?
I think it's going to be a couple of years before people really feel safe mingling too much. If we get a good vaccine and everybody is willing to take it, which you listen to the news probably, so you know that some people just don't see the sense in doing the right things right now, and they won't take the vaccine, so.
Yeah. How have you seen the changes occur, and what strikes you the most?
One of the big things that struck me just a few days ago, when I was little, I used to like to screech.
Screech.
I had a high-pitched scream that just blood-curdling. And I would like to stand outdoors and my mother wouldn't let me. because she said somebody will think you're hurt. And of course the neighbors were distant at that time. And once in a great while she would let me just one scream. And that was so much fun. But the other day I was outdoors and I could hear the boats. And I used to like to hear the lobster boats going out in the morning. But I could hear outboards and noisy boats. There were motorcycles on 123. There was some kind of industrial work going on just between your house and mine. And I thought, Harpswell used to be quiet. You used to step outdoors and you could hear the birds. You didn't hear the neighbors. You didn't hear the loud music blaring way into the night. And I really noticed the noise difference. Mm-hmm. And when we were going to school, we knew everybody that went by. This was before the fuel depot, because then there got to be other people that came with the fuel depot to a certain extent. But if somebody went by that we didn't know, we talked about it. We told our parents when we got home, there was a car, we don't know who it was. Or if somebody got a new car, you noticed it.
And the roads, when we first traveled them, they were muddy.
Oh, yes.
We'd get stuck in the spring,
Yeah.
have to go get a tree out of the woods and get the car jacked up.
When I waited for the school bus with my children, I only knew half of the people that went by. When I waited with my grandchildren, I rarely ever saw somebody I knew. It's just, we're much more populated, obviously, and the noise level is really sometimes annoying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Even in the middle of the night when I worked a lot of night shifts or 3 to 11 and stayed late to count meds and stuff, so I would be like 2 o'clock in the morning going home. And I rarely ever met a car.
Wow.
On 123.
Wow.
But if I go out at night now, they go all night. I hear them if I'm awake during the night. I hear them on the road all night, traffic.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Well, when I think about you have main terminology, like you would use the phrase acoustic roof, and I didn't know what you were talking about, and I asked you to explain it. Do you have other phrases like that you use that are just...
Well, I'm told that up attic and down cellar are very main.
I love it. Up attic and down cellar.
That's what we never said we're going up to the attic. We always said going up attic and
It's
down
great.
cellar.
Great. You got to have more.
I don't know. That's a part of my life. I don't know they're different.
That's so great.
But the houses used to have interesting, my grandmother's house had a summer kitchen. What a practical thing when you were heating with wood, cooking, not having it in the house. It was kind of separate. You could shut it off.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. The lightning struck, came in the front door, went into the pantry, along the wall, exploded behind the stove on the summer kitchen when my mother was there cooking, and went across to the barn, killed a horse.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Well, this has been a fantastic interview. So if there's anything you want to wrap up with about what your view and what you feel about Harpswell, having lived here,
I never lived anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I moved a mile up the road and then a mile back to my mother's house. I never wanted to live anywhere else. I love Harpswell, even after it became big and noisy.
You can't beat that. Well, thank you. This has been a terrific interview. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Now, the boats in those days, early days, were mostly sail.
Yes.
Then they had what Grandma used to call the naphtha boats. So what was it like for for the fishermen to go out with sail.
Well, they had to watch those sails, I guess, and
Yeah.
be ready to haul them down, the notice. Because our great-grandfather built those ships.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you meet your great-grandparents?
They died before I was born. And the great-grandfather died, I think, just 2 years before I was born.
So let's see.
But we lived with both sets of grandparents.
Oh yeah. So Grammy came down here for the kids to be born, and then you went back to Poland.
Right.
And until after your grandfather passed away, and then you moved down here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was free.
Right.
If we wanted to go up to Frank Morse's, we went up in the woodshed door and out the back door
Right through the
of Aunt Alice's. If we wanted to visit Uncle John and Aunt Lizzie, we went down, walked in. We played in the upstairs of that barn a lot. Used to jump down into the hay. Oh, yes. We had a horse named Jim, and he used to get a tummy ache if he got a hold of cabbage or anything. So one time he had a tummy ache. We used to mix up ginger and water and give it to him out of a long neck bottle.
Yeah, yeah.
And my father climbed up the ladder, held his head up, and gave the horse his medicine. Then he dropped the bottle down to my mother, and she didn't catch it. It hit her on the eye.
Oh.
And so it gave her a black eye. Well, she always liked to joke. So when, I guess it was when she went to church the next time, somebody asked her what happened. She said, "Oh, Lynn hit me with a bottle."
Hey ho, roll and go around Cape Horn to San Francisco. Shantyman, sing, boys, pull on the line, and we're back in record time. Now at Bath down in Maine, they built many tall ships. They were paired up and flanked and launched down the slips. The strength of our nation was built on the pine of the mast trees that harnessed the wind. There were schooners and sloops and all kinds of small craft. There were warships with cannon both forward and aft, and the queens of the seas, Downeasters and Clippers, mighty proud men were their skippers. With their hey-ho roll